like Amy said, this presentation is called Native Advertising and Digital Natives. And I'm a native of New Zealand myself, but I live in California. So I'm bringing a special a mix to this, or blend to this presentation here. So I want you to first sit back and kind of visualize something with me here. Visualize a Sunday morning where you're drinking your coffee. Ooh, not getting advancement here. My beautiful transitions. I hope they're preserved. Yeah, give it another fire up. Maybe a restart on PowerPoint?
Do that when you restart? Sure. Sorry, guys.
They all transition, so those are going to be shot when we do it this way. Hey, success. Thank you, sir. You're a lifesaver. Right. You touched it. Okay, so back in action here. We're visualizing a scene, right? Sunday morning, you're drinking your coffee, you've had a long work week, and it's time to consume some news at your favorite desk. So here you are browsing through some websites, and you're cruising around, you're checking out headlines, you're checking out stuff that interests you, that piques your interest. And at some point you get to, after Yahoo News, where, the big aggregator, you get to, you're done with your news veggies, as my colleague likes to say, and you get into some dessert here. Some chocolate-covered cherries, BuzzFeed style. So you're checking out BuzzFeed's homepage, and you notice something in the bottom right corner there. And it says Hollywood, and it says 10 things you might not have known about Los Angeles. And there's a little logo underneath that. And that logo is General Electric's. So you pause for a second and think to yourself, now, what the hell does GE have to do with LA and liking it? Don't they make aircraft engines and blenders and light bulbs? So you do a little more investigation. You start clicking the back arrow, and you start really scrutinizing these web pages. And lo and behold, you start noticing there's quite a bit of content on these pages that's affiliated with some kind of corporation. It's labeled differently. Sometimes it's called a sponsored post. Sometimes it's called word from our sponsor. Sometimes it's a little more insidious and hard to discern. But nonetheless, there it is. Whether it's a logo or an actual phrase or an overt, sponsored by Xfinity right there in red. So there are a variety of ways that these types of native advertisements are revealed or not revealed. So the definition here of native advertising: ads that are seamlessly integrated into a user's feed and are nearly indistinguishable from organic content. These can include everything from advertorials, branded content, sponsored products, sponsored videos, this whole list. The list goes on, and it's expanding almost every day at an extremely rapid pace. It's only limited by essentially the creativity of advertisers and the willingness of journalistic organizations to integrate this type of advertising. There's also, the rush is kind of on too with social media, social networking. We're probably all sick now, sick and tired of Facebook-style advertisements that appear in your feed and somehow profess to know what you want before you do. It's in Instagram, it's in Twitter, and these developments are really pretty nascent, pretty in the last couple of years. So this chart is essentially depicting how likely it is for marketers and advertisers to spend money on native advertisements in the next 6 months. And by the data in the chart, over 65% of ad agencies and marketers claim that they are somewhat likely or very likely to spend money on native ads in the next 6 months. So clearly the rush is on. With prominent news organizations such as The Economist, Forbes, The Atlantic, Huffington Post, Washington Post, Time Incorporated, New York Times, and Yahoo have all embraced or at least integrated some form of native advertisements in their editorial mix. So here's the problem. According to the Society of Professional Journalists, journalists should distinguish news from advertising and shun, keyword shun, hybrids that blur the lines between the two. So native advertising is clearly falling into this category of a hybrid that's kind of blurring this line. So here's a good quote from, I believe it was a Guardian article about native advertising. And I love the last phrase there. At stake is the trust earned by the publication over its entire lifespan. And as we all know, I mean, I heard Jason Blair mention earlier, the credibility of your news organization is sort of a one-way street. You can build it up slowly, but once it's gone, it's very difficult to regain. So what we wanted to figure out was whether or not the presence of native advertising affected, or how it affected, the user's experience. Once you notice that the Hollywood article is sponsored by GE, does that influence your perception of BuzzFeed, whatever it is to begin with? And would that perception be different if you saw a native advertisement, let's say, on the New York Times? So we aimed to find out, and here's what we did. We took the BuzzFeed page, essentially exactly, duplicated it exactly, and we identified the native advertisement that was there. So this is unchanged. This is a screenshot of the BuzzFeed page from the day we started our research. And what we did is put forth a survey that showed two mock-ups, one with a native ad and one with a more traditional advertisement. So it's not couched in an editorial story. It's not a listicle. It's essentially right there in your face in yellow and blue, buy this Omni-Freeze gear. So we wanted to see whether or not, like I said, people would A, recognize that there's a difference there, and B, whether or not that recognition would lead to some kind of judgment on the website's overall credibility. So we asked a series of questions. And here's what we discovered at the end of our research. I think just under 300 people took this survey. There were two main age groups, 25 and under, and then 25 to 55, I believe. And we discovered some interesting things by using two age demographics in addition to the stuff we discovered about perceptions of credibility. So the first finding was this, that the presence of sponsored versus traditional online ads had no significant effect on the viewer's perception of a news website's credibility. So this sort of, in some ways, flies in the face of what I've been reading and hearing for a while, that native ads are more attractive to people, to consumers. You'll like the website better if it's not a traditional style ad. You'll appreciate it more. You'll appreciate that they're trying, so therefore you might bestow more credibility on the site itself. Our findings disputed that. Regardless of the type of advertising type shown, respondents in the over 55 age group judged the site as more credible than did their younger counterparts, which was also pretty interesting finding to us. Participants exposed to the traditional banner type ad were more likely to report having noticed ads on the webpage when compared to those who viewed the native advertisement. So in that sense, native ads are working. They're they're less overt. They're harder to distinguish. And in the end, this left us with a bunch of questions. The revelation that the data was kind of flying in the face of popular sentiment that native ads are a good thing, and if you embrace native advertisements in your media organization, it will lead to less angst from readers and consumers. We didn't necessarily find that, and it kind of opened up a whole new realm of questions for us, and among them these. And as you can see, we go from nitty-gritty to, I think, what the most important theme or issue here is, and that's the last question. how can the harm to an organization's credibility be minimized or nullified if, in fact, you continue to employ a native ad strategy? So we think our research is important, obviously, to advertisers in addition to journalistic organizations, because the jury is still very much out on how people are perceiving, treating, and reading into the different forms of advertisements that are appearing online. Thank you very much.